Ako ay anak ng farmer. Mula noong ako'y ng elementary, high school, mag-college, hindi ko nakita na may technical help siyang natanggap. Ayaw kong maranasan yan ng mga magsasaka ngayon. Ngayong ako ay may kakayanang tumulong, gawin ko ang aking best na matulungan sila. Ako si Ricardo Orge. Ako ay scientist for the Filipino rice farmers. Hindi ko pinangarap na maging scientist. At that time, may ino-offer na scholarship para sa mga coconut farmers yon. Coconut farmers si tatay ko. May agricultural engineer na kalagay. Sino ako yon? Wala akong idea kung ano yon. Para lang makatapos, I did my best. Isa sa mga na-invento ko dito sa field rice para sa magsasaka ay itong tinatawag nating continuous type rice hull carbonizer. Naisip ko itong i-develop yung carbonizer noong ako ay naghahanap ng isang topic para sa aking PhD dissertation. Paano natin ma-address yung issue ng climate change, na isa sa mga apektado talaga dito ay yung mga magsasaka natin. Ang rice hull, isa din sa mga problema ng rice production. Kung saan-saan mo lang yan makikita, dinadump. Kasi wala siyang gamit. Naisip ko na para mapakinabangan at para rin ma-promote yung biochar, dinevelop ko itong continuous type rice hull carbonizer. Ang biochar is simply charcoal, pinaprocess with the intention of applying it in the soil as soil conditioner. Nakakatulong siya para mag-capture ng carbon. It's a simple tool for climate change mitigation. Habang pinoproseso yung IPA into biochar, yung init, ay hinahanapan naman natin ng paraan upang magamit, mag-develop ng mga food products, iba pang products with added value para magkaroon ng added income ang ating mga magsasaka. So may team ako, katulong ko sa paggawa yung mga shop technicians. Sa engineering divisions sila lahat. You want to create something from scratch. Yung wala pang mga theories involved. Mabalaho ka minsan at the middle Yun yung para kang natutorture. Pati sa gabi sa pagtulog mo, ano bang gagawin para mapagana, mga ganun ba? So may paghihirap in the process. Pero pag at the end, makita mo rin isang satisfied user. Okay na yung mga naranasan mong hirap kapalit doon sa ngiti ng user na.
Si Dr. Orge, masasabi ko na siya ang aking mentor. Palagi niyang ina-emphasize kung ano yung mga knowledge and learnings na matututunan namin. Napaka-hardworking ni Sir sa lahat ng bagay. Talagang binibigay niya yung best niya. Kaya naman nagiging expert siya halos sa lahat ng bagay.
Siya ay isang excellent engineer sa akin kasi nga siya pag gumawa, yung puso ang pinagagana niya. Habang kami nagkukwentuhan, nagkakape, may nakasabay na brainstorming namin. Doon pa nga lumalabas ko minsan yung mga bright ideas.
Si Sir napaka-jolly niya, napaka-masiyahin. For 2 years na nakasama ko siya, hindi ko pa na-experience na nagalit siya.
Pakiramdam ko sa kanya parang hindi ibang tao sa akin. Parang tatay ko, gano'n. Magaan po yung loob namin talaga sa kanya.
Yung mga technologies na nade-develop niya, nakafocus talaga siya para sa mga farmers. Yung bang kapag pinasa na sa farmer, dapat kayang-kaya itong i-operate ng farmer, gano'n.
Hindi mo siya makikitang malayo sa mga magsaka. Magka-level sila at marunong siyang makisama. Pero nagagawa niyang ibigay yung mga gusto niyang iparating sa kanila na yung mga farmers ay natutuwa kapag siya ay nakakasama.
Whatever you do, do it for the glory of the Lord. Parang yun yung hugot niya palagi Pagka ginawa mo, hindi para ipagmayabang, kundi yung ability mo na binigay ni Lord, yun yung gamitin mo para mag-glorify siya at saka para sa benefit ng ibang tao. Katulad niya, gusto ko ring maging excellent engineer someday.
Alam nyo, may mga temptations to go outside, lalabas sa government service. Mga 2-3 times ang salary. Pero I choose to stay hanggang retirement. Kasi nga, gusto kong tumulong sa magsasaka. Ang prinsipyo ko talaga sa trabaho, nasa Bible. In whatsoever things you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto men. It's in Colossians 3:23. Maliit man na bagay, pag yan ay inassign sa akin, gagawin talaga yung best ko. It's my way of honoring God to give my best in the workplace. May mga awards akong nakukuha because of that. Why do I deserve the award? I did my best. At nabanggit ko rin kanina may promise ang Panginoon. Maaring ito na yung promise. Promise ko sa mga farmer, hindi lang carbonizer ang nagagawa. Ang tulong ko with my team na kasama ko sa field rice ay siguro hanggat ako'y buhay, maganda pangkalusugan, ay may magagawa pa ako at aking mga kasamahan. Ako ay scientist na para sa inyo. For the Filipino rice farmers.
Kung gusto nating baguhin yung sitwasyon ng mga magsasaka, yung antas nila sa lipunan, kailangan natin silang i-empower. Ako si Dr. Michael Dragasin, son of a farmer, isang researcher at engineer.
Sa baba ng presyo ng palay, halos bawing gastos lang po. Nagtitira lang po kami ng pambigas. Mahirap po talaga pag malayo ang kiskisan.
Yung magulang ko kasi noon ay isang magsasaka din. Naisipan ko na mag-develop ng compact corn mill at saka yung Impeller rice mill para matulungan sila at madagdagan ang kanilang ani.
Madali lang pong gamitin ang kiskisan po. Simple lang po. Meron po siyang blower. Doon po inilalagay yung palay. Yung nag-aakyat ng palay, mapunta po doon sa mill. Doon na po sa kiskisan.
Malaking bagay sa mga membro. Hindi siya nangangailangan ng malaking lugar.
Napakataas ng milling recovery. Brown rice pa yon. May bebenta mo sa reasonable price. Talaga abutin mo mga 20% sa kita.
Napakabuti niyang kawan. Friendly siya, approachable, tapos mababang loob.
Hindi po niya pinahalatang siya doktor pagkaharap po kami mga magsasaka.
Lagi niya pong ini-instill sa isip namin na gawin yung tama sa trabaho.
Dapat with heart, may puso sa pagtatrabaho. Mas nagiging successful yung trabaho nyo, mas gumaganda yung project, mas magaganda yung output.
Nagbubuhat siya ng palay, nag-ano talagang feel mo yung concern niya. He deserves so much. Kasi sobra talaga ang kanyang qualification doon sa punto na yun.
Hey Michael, Doktor, salamat po sa inyo.
Ang isang excellent engineer rise to the call of duty with passion, applying their scientific knowledge in solving complex or common problems ng ating society. Dapat lang natulungan natin ang ating mga magsasaka. It's worth dying for.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jill Ramos from Manila Water Foundation, and I will be your host for today. In partnership with the Department of Science and Technology and the Philippine Technological Council, Manila Water Foundation welcomes you to the Engineers for Excellence webinar series. At this point, I would like to greet all of our participants from DOST and PTC and their affiliate offices and organizations. Likewise, a great morning to all of the participants who are currently viewing our live feed on the Engineers for Excellence Facebook group and MWF's Facebook and YouTube pages. And we are so glad to be able to reach the entire Philippines with viewers from Cebu, Sultan Kudarat, and Sorsogon. We even have viewers from Singapore, Doha, and Kanagawa in Japan. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This three-part series aims to highlight the valuable contributions of Filipino engineers in our nation's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout the webinar series, we feature the awardees of the Manila Water Foundation Prize for Engineering Excellence and their projects with the hope of encouraging more engineers and innovators to venture into research and development, make their technologies accessible to the greater public, and contribute to engineering solutions to society's problems. Today, we are in our third and final episode where we will focus on the theme Engineers as Entrepreneurs Supporting Backliners. Our invited speakers for today are here to share their projects which help our farmers in improving their farm processes and ensure food security for the whole country. But before we go into that, we are honored to be graced with the presence of no less than the President of the Philippine Technological Council, who will give the welcome remarks for today. Please welcome Engineer Federico Monsada.
Hello. Uh, Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Maayong aga sa inyong tanan. This is the third episode of and I think it's the last episode of the MWF featuring several of our awardees in the past few years. And perhaps I would like to speak about the trends that are ongoing right now in the international scene, of which PTC is involved, because this will in fact highlight the things that we are doing at MWF Excellence in Engineering Award. In the last few weeks, PTC has been involved with the review of the future of engineering. And one of the major items that was discussed there was on inclusiveness and diversity. And I believe that these are the two main feature of the works of our awardees today. They have been very inclusive in their works, even if there is a significant diversity in the communities that they are working with. And I'm very happy that I've been invited to make these opening remarks, because I believe that our engineers, many, if not a lot of our engineers, are there working not only for their own families, but they are working for the community as well as the nation. And I'm very happy that MWF, of course, together with PTC and DOST, have been pursuing this program of giving recognition to our engineers who have made a significant mark on the lives of people, especially those who are at the lowest bottom of our society. And it is for this reason that PTC has been supporting this program. So in behalf of all the members, 13 members of the Philippine Technological Council, the council officers, executive officers of PTC, and all the engineers who have been involved with PTC, especially in the area of recognition, international as well as local recognition. We are very, very happy that again, the fourth run of the MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence is about to be launched. And please take note that launching of this program will be right at the time when we will be celebrating the World Engineering Day for Sustainable Development. So I encourage all engineers, engineering professionals all over the country to look around you, and see those engineers and scientists who have been doing services for the community, and make sure that they will be known for what they have done, because it is very important, especially for our youth, that they will see that engineers are the builders, engineers are the makers, engineers are the implementers of ideas that will definitely improve the lives of our people. So with this, I would like to welcome all of you to this third webinar on the lives and the works of our awardees. And of course, thank you very much to MWF for this opportunity to speak to our people. And I heard Jill about it, it being national in scope and even international. I know there are many engineers in Singapore, in Malaysia, in especially in the Middle East. If you are listening, my friends, especially those who are there, Singapore, Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, thank you very much as well for listening, for following MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence. Make it happen, my friends. We invite all of you to nominate your candidates for the next run, the fourth run of the MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence. With that, thank you and welcome to all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Monsada. It truly is a great honor to have you here today, and we really truly appreciate the support that PTC has been giving us all through these years to the MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence. And you are absolutely correct. Engineers really are the builders, the makers, and the implementers of ideas that improve the lives of people. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our first speaker for today. He is one of the lone awardee of the prize in 2017. He is an agricultural engineer by profession and is a scientist too, and the program leader for Create Rice program of the Philippine Rice Research Institute. Among his major R&D projects is the continuous type rice hull carbonizer, which helps farmers convert farm waste such as rice hull and rice straw into biochar, which can be used as a soil conditioner for their farms to help improve the quality and yield of their produce. Through this project, he and his team in Philrice was also able to give an alternative livelihood option to rice farmers in Nueva Ecija and Bulacan that uses the machine in mushroom production. Aside from being an awardee of the prize, he is also among the 2019 Presidential Lingkod Bayan National winner and was recognized as an outstanding agricultural engineer in various recognition bodies in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker for today, Dr. Ricardo F Orge.
Thank you very much, Jill, for that kind and generous introduction. Hello, everyone. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the Manila Water Foundation and its partners, the Philippine Technological Council, and the Department of Science and Technology for inviting me as one of the resource persons for this webinar series. The title of my presentation is Technologies for the New Normal, Helping Smallholder Farmers Face Challenging Times. I am from the Philippine Rice Research Institute, or PhilRice, a government agency attached to the Department of Agriculture. At PhilRice, we develop technologies to improve farming practices so our farmers can produce enough food for all of us Filipinos. Next slide, please. So, we are now in a situation which we call new normal because of this COVID pandemic. There are a lot of things that we do now which we don't normally do in the past. It is normal to be wearing masks in public places. It is also normal to see a uniformed personnel pointing at what looks like a gun on someone's forehead in the entrances of malls, groceries, stores, and other public places. So, why? Because we need to respond to crises or uncertainties. Next slide, please. So, in times like this, our normal response is to secure food. We want to ensure that there is enough food for our family for the next days or weeks to come. We want to be sure that our children will not go to bed with empty stomach. We want to be sure that we survive and recover from this crisis. Next slide, please. So one of the technologies or farming practice that prove its usefulness in trying times like palayamanan. Palayamanan is a diversified and integrated rice-based farming system wherein aside from rice production, other activities like vegetable production, aquaculture, the raising of chickens, livestock production, among others, are also integrated. This is to diversify investment and sources of income, maximize use of land, ensure household and nutrition security. Palayamanan was originally developed by PhilRice for farmers in marginal areas, so that farmers can have other sources of income aside from rice production. So now it has evolved into a farming strategy that can help farmers enhance their resilience to extreme climate events or crises like the COVID pandemic we are experiencing right now. When Luzon was put under enhanced community quarantine, PhilRice, in collaboration with its partners, launched the Pag-ahon project in support of the Plant program of the Department of Agriculture. Pag-ahon means sa palay at gulay, may ani, hanap buhay, oportunidad at nutrisyon, which is basically anchored on the concept of palayamanan. Next slide, please. So, okay. In palayamanan, the use of byproducts is maximized. For example, rice hull, which is a byproduct of rice production, is processed into charcoal, which we call here as biochar, which is widely used as a soil conditioner. There are a lot of benefits that biochar can give, which I will later on expound. It is also used as bedding material for poultry and livestock. So a thick layer of rice hull biochar serves as a carpet on the floor of pig pens, which absorbs urine and facilitates the collection of manure. It also suppresses odor, and once saturated with pig urine, this batch of biochar is removed and then replaced with another batch. The removed batch is then applied in vegetable gardens soil conditioner, wherein it also helps improve the fertility of the soil. Next slide, please. So biochar is simply charcoal that is produced with the intention of putting it back into the soil. It is globally recognized as a simple but powerful tool to address some of the world's urgent environmental problems. The carbon in biochar resists degradation and can hold carbon in soils for hundreds to thousands of years. So biochar and bioenergy co-production can help combat global warming by displacing fossil fuel use and by sequestering carbon in stable carbon pools. It may also reduce emissions of nitrous oxide. Biochar can be an important tool to increase food security and cropland diversity in areas with severely depleted soils and adequate water and chemical fertilizer supplies. Biochar also improves water quality and quantity by increasing soil retention of nutrients and agrochemicals to plant and crop utilization. More nutrients stay in the soil instead of leaching into the ground and causing pollution. So these are just some of the benefits with which we can get from the use of biochar. Next slide, please. Okay. So in short, biochar helps in keeping the soil healthy. It can be equated to the coral reefs in the oceans, which provide a good environment for the fishes to grow and multiply. In short, it is an indicator of a healthy sea ocean. In the same manner, biochar, when observed under a microscope, contains a lot of rooms conducive for the growth of beneficial organisms that helps improve the condition and fertility of the soil. Next slide, please. Okay. These learnings about the biochar, particularly its role in making crop production, among others, pushed me to develop an improved system of producing biochar from rice hull. It has no moving parts and does not require electricity to operate. That's very much applicable even in off-grid areas. The traditional practice is batch type, produces a lot of smoke, and the generated heat is just wasted. I never realized this would lead me to the 2017 MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence. Muli maraming salamat MWF and its partners, the PTC and the DOST. Next slide, please. Okay. Together with my research team, we are still doing some research on the various uses of the heat generated by the carbonizer. Some of the uses of the carbonizer you can see on the screen are proof of concepts, which were done because there were interested users who wanted to try some of the recovered heat for specific applications. For example, a farmer in Coyapo, Nueva Ecija, approached me years ago and asked if it's possible and feasible to use the carbonizer to provide supplemental heat in his poultry house. Supplemental heat is needed during the first 2 weeks of growth of the chickens or chicks. Thus, we tried to replace the LPG fuel burners and found that it worked. On the other hand, for the production of cocoa sugar is another story. So this picture was taken in Alabat, the one that is used for cocoa sugar production. This one was taken in Alabat, Quezon. Hopefully by next year or years, when things get back to normal, we can try any or all of these innovations in a farmers cooperative as part of their income generating activities, while also subjecting these innovations under actual operating conditions. Just yesterday, we were testing a new carbonizer attachment that makes use of the heat And we were quite successful in making use of this heat in pumping water. The result was really very promising. Next slide, please. So among these heat recovery attachments, the most popular one is the one used in mushroom production. These are now being used by at least, I think, 6 farmer cooperatives. Next slide, please. Okay. Mushroom production is a typical component of the palaymanan, and for us to appreciate the role of the carbonizer in providing income opportunities for farmers through mushroom production, let me explain in detail using this slide. So in rice production, we produce byproducts like rice hull and rice straw, and they are very useful in mushroom production. These rice hulls are processed into biochar using the carbonizer, while the straws are also used as substrates for growing oyster mushrooms. The rice straws are chopped and then placed in plastic bags, which we call as mushroom fruiting bags. These mushroom fruiting bags are pasteurized to kill the organisms present so as to ensure that only the mushroom spawn will grow in the fruiting bags. The pasteurization process makes use of the heat generated during the carbonization process. This model creates a lot of business opportunities. As you can see, farmers can sell the fruiting bags or sell the grown mushrooms, or they can process the mushrooms into something that is that are of higher value. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about my experience during the time when we were under ECQ. During the lockdown period, we were raising vegetable seedlings in support of the Pag-ahon project. I have mentioned that the Pag-ahon project was in support of the DA's plant program. Part of my team's contribution was to produce biochar to be mixed with soil as growing medium for the vegetable seedlings. Then we realized that, we didn't have enough supply of rice hull. We normally purchase these rice hulls from the rice mills nearby, but these also were closed during the lockdown. But inside field rice campus and even the backyards of most housing units, there were a lot of biomass waste which were unutilized. So I thought of utilizing them. But unfortunately, at that time, the carbonizer was not prepared for this kind of biomass. Although before we made some initial trials, but we noticed that this carbonizer has some potentials for processing biochar from other biomass sources. So I felt the need to further came up with a much simpler design of the carbonizer. Next slide, please. So these are just examples of the biomass waste that are commonly found in the backyards. Okay. Although in the past we have tried using the carbonizing biomass waste like corn cobs, peanut shells, but we failed to try this kind of biomass. So that lead me to a new design of the carbonizer, which my team developed during the COVID lockdown. Next slide, please. So during those times, my team did a lot of revisions until we came up with a new model of the carbonizer, which is much simpler in design much easier to fabricate, and of course, much cheaper. So the previous one is made of 100% metal, but this time it made use of 90%, 98% ferrocement. Ferrocement is just concrete reinforced with wire screen. Of course, there are some parts that are made of metal. So with this, the cost had been drastically reduced. Imagine for the metal model, the one at the left, for the carbonizer plus its attachment, cooking attachment, that costed around 40,000, maybe around three years ago or 3 to 5 years ago. But the one on the left, I think it depends on the price of cement and the screen. You can fabricate that maybe around 5,000 to 10,000. Next slide, please. So this is my dream. This is my dream. I still dream that, and I hope this will happen in the future, in the near future, with the new and much simpler design of the, I call it COVID carbonizer, carbonizer for biomass discards. We'll just call it COVID carbonizer and not just COVID to avoid confusion. With this new design, it may be possible for each household, especially in rural areas, to have this for use in managing their solid waste, biomass waste. With this, each household in a community can have their own regular supply of biochar for sustainable gardening, among others, as well as heat, a source of energy for various income-generating activities. Next slide, please. Now let's go back to my second slide. Going back, the new normal with a big question mark. Eventually, the vaccine will come and this pandemic will already be a thing of the past. This means that the new normal brought by the COVID-19 pandemic is just temporary. It will not last long. The wearing of masks in public places will no longer be required and no longer be a thing to do. The pointing of thermal gun on the forehead would perhaps irritate most people since it will no longer be part of the basic protocol when we enter an establishment. Next slide, please. The real new normal is climate change. According to the experts, we will be experiencing strong typhoons, not only now, not only in the past, but still in the future. The intensity, of drought we will be experiencing more extreme drought. The rainfall will be more variable. Farmers could no longer make use of their planting calendars. There is rise in temperature. There's rise in sea water level. That's what the experts tell us. And we should be prepared for this. I included the rise in seawater level because most of our rice farms are situated in coastal areas. And with this, it would be possible that the soil were in these rice fields that are in coastal areas would be affected by salt water. Next slide, please. According to the report of the World Bank in 2013, the poor who have had very little to do with causing global warming or climate change will suffer the most. And most of our farmers, particularly smallholders, are the ones affected. Next slide, please. When I visited my hometown in Leyte, Merida, Leyte, I realized how devastating Typhoon Yolanda was. It was already 6 months after the typhoon hit the province when I visited the place, but I still noticed a lot of houses unrepaired. I had the impression that the problem is not more on money since these houses are originally good looking and most of them have parked cars in the garage. Then later I learned that there was shortage of carpenter during the recovery period wherein each household has that same need of carpenter to repair their house. So this led me to the concept of cuevo. It's a term derived from two words, cueva and cubo. Cubo is a multipurpose farm structure designed to have a structural integrity of a cave or cueva to make it typhoon resistant, yet easy to construct like a bahay kubo so that even farmers and those in their communities can be capacitated to construct the structure by themselves. In order to simplify its method of construction, it makes use of prefabricated parts and construction aids. We call these as prefabricated parts or as basic construction units. The ones you see in the picture that forms the skeletal framework of the structure, these are the BCUs, the basic construction units I'm referring to. The BCU can be equated to a hollow block, which when joined together forms the wall, or the GI sheets, which when joined together forms the roof of a building. But a BCU is more than a hollow block or a GI sheet since it can carry a load. In this case, we use bamboo and wire screen as reinforcement for the BCU. The unit you can see in this slide is the one that is established at the futurized farm of field rice here at Muñoz, Nueva Ecija, and is being used as shelter of paddy dryer and the storage of palay. Next slide, please. Okay. This one, we piloted tested the technology in a farmers association in Mayamot, Zaragoza, Nueva Ecija. This structure was built by most of the members of the association with few hard workers. Its construction was completed, I think, in the early part of this year. And this was subjected naturally by Typhoon Ulysses. At that time, Nueva Ecija was under signal number 3. Fortunately, it survived even after a large broken branch of mango tree hit it. The one that damaged was the vortex, the blue one at the top, which serves as a ventilator. It's made of GI sheet. Okay. So we are still in the process of establishing the carbonizer, the complete carbonizer for this mushroom production project now, while we are still under pandemic situation. Most of the members of this association have rice fields that are oftentimes flooded during rainy season, so they could only plant rice once a year. Hence, the mushroom production serves as their alternative source of income during rainy season. Next slide, please. Okay, that's for the strong typhoons. Now we talk of extreme drought. Another challenge which the farmers are facing due to climate change is extreme drought or El Nino, wherein during these conditions, the supply of water for irrigation is very limited. In conditions like this, we normally advise farmers not to plant rice since it is already very risky and they might lose their initial investments, but instead advise them to plant short duration crops which can easily be converted into cash. And this is where the idea of the capillary irrigation, or we call it capillary irrigation system, evolved. There are already efficient irrigation systems available in the market, like the micro sprinklers and the drip irrigation systems, but these technologies are costly and far beyond the financial reach of the smallholder farmers. The capillary irrigation system is a do-it-yourself type irrigation technology, which can be made using local materials. These materials can be found inside the house. or in the backyard. It can be considered as a variant of drip irrigation system, wherein it makes use of capillary wicks and capillary action as means of dispensing water, similar to the function of an emitter in the drip irrigation system. The principle of operation is very simple. All we have to do is establish a stable supply of water, which could be a pipe provided with holes or a narrow canal where we can put the capillary wicks. In this setup, we made use of tarpaulin, which were formed into U shape to simulate a canal with closed ends so as to be able to hold water. Then we place the wicks at certain spacing based on the desired planting distance of the crop. For the wicks, we made use of cotton strands normally used in mapping floors. Used t-shirts made of 100% cotton, cut into 25 or 1-inch wide strips, can also be made into capillary wicks. If you notice in this picture, we covered the wicks with drinking straws. There's recycled drinking straws, so as to minimize water evaporation as the wicks are exposed to the heat of the sun once you have established the system in your garden. The garden would operate on its own. In other words, the system makes your garden self-watering as long as there are still water at the tank. In our field trials, it appeared that the capillary irrigation system is more efficient than the drip as reflected in the value for the water use efficiency, which means that for every liter of irrigation water applied, we get a yield of 36.6 kilogram as compared to only 9.9 kilogram of the drip irrigation system. This data were derived from actual field tests using green pepper as our test crop. Next slide, please. So this is also one of the outputs during the lockdown time. We developed this do-it-yourself guide on how to install the capillary irrigation system in a backyard garden. This is still subject for review and improvement, but for those who can't wait and would try it, you may ask a copy of it. Then I'll consider it as a pilot test. Please provide me your feedback later on. Next slide, please. Okay. This is still a proof of concept. We have proven that we can grow pigs even with these miniaturized pig pens. With this design, I'm confident that it can already withstand strong typhoons. The roof actually is a self-watering garden where we established the capillary irrigation system. So the garden with the growing plants, in this case, plant kangkong, insulates the pigs from the heat of the sun. In addition, the soil, which is mixed with biochar, is maintained moist by the capillary irrigation system, which keeps the temperature inside the pig pen low through evaporative cooling. The pig pen can be constructed using the same principle as Cuevo. In this case, we made use of prefabricated panels made of concrete and reinforced with bamboo splits and wire screen. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the sacklobe. We call it sacklobe. This is a technology for storing paddy seeds, so as to ensure the quality of the seeds and that the seeds will still germinate at the time they are needed. This was actually developed in the early 2000s during the time when the hybrid rice was first commercialized nationwide through the hybrid rice commercialization program of the government. This is a local version of an Israeli technology which operates by simply keeping the seeds in a hermetic or gas-tight container so that the outside air could not influence the condition of the seeds stored inside this container. This means that as long as the properly dried seeds are kept inside this container, they will remain dry even when stored during periods of continuous rain wherein the surrounding air is humid. Moreover, there are seeds. Since the seeds respire, they take in oxygen in the air inside the container. If the seeds are infested with weevils, these weevils also take in oxygen as they breathe. So there comes a time when the oxygen content of the air inside the sacklobe is depleted. This condition is favorable for the seeds, but not for the weevils. The weevils will eventually die as the oxygen level lowers down. Next slide, please. Perhaps you already have you already know the RCEP or have heard the RCEP or the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. This is where the sacklobe, we plan the sacklobe to use the sacklobe. Field Rice is involved in this program, being the one implementing the seed component of RCEP. We are in charge in the procurement and distribution of the seeds, so that even during lockdown, the distribution of seeds were continued. We are anticipating that there could be excess seeds that need to be stored so that they can still be used in the next planting season. This is where sacklobe plays an important role. Okay. So next slide, please. So for my concluding remarks, farmers, especially the smallholder ones, are facing a lot of challenges, and technologies alone are not enough to solve the problems which they are facing. They need more help. Likewise, the agriculture sector as a whole needs your help, our support. And each one of us has the capacity to contribute. The least we can do is to be, next slide please, responsible. And your Papa Piolo has already done his part. Don't waste rice. You may recite the Panatang Makapalay, the copy of which is available in the internet. And from there, you will have an idea of how not to waste a rice. I hope everybody would recite it seriously. The next slide is a video which I hope all of us should seriously get the message. Please play the video. So that ends my presentation. My email address is shown for those who want to know more details about the technologies I was presenting. For concerns about for other concerns, I have here the email address of Phil Rice and the PhilRice website. I recommend you visit our site. We can learn a lot of things. And for urgent concerns, we have the PhilRice Tech Center. Concerns about rice farming, and our experts are ready to answer your questions within 1 hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orge, for that very informative and educational presentation. Truly, you were so inspiring, Dr. Orge, because I've learned that with all your innovations, such as the COVID Carbonizer, the Cuebo, the Capillary Irrigation System, and the Saklob, we need to continue innovating and improving our technologies to help our farmers who feed us, no? And of course, because our experts have predicted that climate change will only get worse, this is so important. And what's so nice about your presentation is that not only are we called to improve our technologies, but we can do our own little share in helping our farmers by being rice responsible. Ayan. So before we proceed to our second and last speaker for today, may I please remind our viewers to send their questions to our speakers through the comment section of this broadcast, either on the Engineers for Excellence Facebook group or MWF's Facebook or YouTube pages. Our panel will answer your queries right after the presentation of our last speaker. To move on with our program, let me introduce our second and final speaker for today's webinar. He is also among the 4 awardees of the 2019 edition of the prize and is also an agricultural engineer by profession. He is a supervising science research specialist with the rank of Scientist 2 at the Philippine Center for Post-Harvest Development and Mechanization, or Pilmec, of the Department of Agriculture. He finished Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Engineering at Isabela State University, Master's and Doctorate degrees major in Agricultural Economics at Chiba University. That's in Japan, and it was under the Japanese scholarship program. He was also a recipient of the Newton Agham Leaders in Innovation Fellowship under the DOST and British Royal Academy of Engineering in 2015. Aside from his awards, his works are the better way to appreciate his ingenuity. While most innovators are aspirational and aims to make high-end version of the contemporary technology, he uses innovations to make the new type of corn mill and rice mill machines more accessible, efficient, and affordable to the Filipino farmers. The micro mill for brown rice, for example, allows farmers, even with land holding of only 1 hectare, to viably own a rice mill for an investment less than the price of a carabao. Imagine that. So these technologies give the farmers the chance to process and market their own produce for value-adding activities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Michael A. Gragasi.
Thank you, Jill, for that kind introduction. Isang mapayapa at mapagpalang umaga sa inyong lahat. Good morning. It is indeed a great privilege and honor to be one of the speakers of the webinar series of the Manila Water Foundation with the team in this 3rd episode, Engineers Supporting Backliners. May I pause and ask, who are the backliners in this time of pandemic? According to the Chief of QC DRRMO, Mike Marasigan, as reported by the Philippine Daily Inquirer, backliners are those people working behind the frontliners. Ang sabi nga niya, di baling pagod ang ating frontliners, wag lang silang gutom at hindi sila harap sa gyera na wala silang sandata. I totally agree with Ms. Marasigan. Ensuring the availability of food during our battle against COVID-19 virus is very important, and our Filipino farmers have played a vital role in supplying the food requirement of our frontliners and the Filipino people in general with the great efforts of DA, DTI, and the Office of the President. The problem is, our Filipino farmers cry for help as palay prices plunge and thus their income. Based on the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, the average farm gate price of palay during the fourth week of September this year went down to 16.24 pesos per kilogram from 18.36 pesos during the first week of August. According to the report of Jam Cesante Caico on GMA's 24 Horas, farmers have begun thinking of leaving the rice fields or selling their land if the buying price of palay will continue to go down. Based on the latest Family Income and Expenditure Survey, the average income of farmers in the Philippines is around 100,000 pesos a year, or just over 8,000 pesos a month, which is well below the poverty line. How can we make our agriculture sector sustainable? If rice farming is no longer attractive to some of our marginalized Filipino farmers, today, may I share with you what we are doing in finding solutions to the current economic conditions of our Filipino farmers at ang aming kontribusyon sa aspirasyon ng kagawaran ng magsasaka na pinangungunahan ng aming butihing sekretary, Dr. William Dar, para sa masaganang ani at mataas na kita para sa kanila. As one of the scientists or engineers at Pilmec, our team developed affordable and appropriate milling machines so that farmers can process their own produce and sell their product in the form of milled rice instead of selling right away their freshly harvested palay at very low price. Why milling machines? As we are aware of, most of the milling machines in the country are owned or at the hands of rich grain businessmen. Mabibilang sa ating mga daliri ang mga magsasaka na may sariling milling machine at karamihan ng mga lugar sa Pilipinas na ang pangunahing tanim ay palay at mais ay walang milling machine. We all know that rice are the staple foods of the Filipinos, and yet the Department of Agriculture has estimated that the total rice mill deficit in our country is around 23,000 units of Sorry, nawala ako. Nakakalungkot na karamihan sa ating mga magsasaka ay hindi natitikman ang kanilang sariling ani. At ang isa sa dahilan ay hindi practical na magpagiling sila sa rice mill o corn mill na pinakamalapit sa kanilang lugar. Kaya binebenta na lang nila sa mga traders ang kanilang ani pagkatapos nilang anihin ito sa bukid. It is our belief that unless our farmers do not have their own post-harvest facilities like dryers and rice mill, it's not easy for them to engage in value-adding activities, and sadly, it is hard for them to augment their income if there's no other form of economic activities that will be introduced to them. One of the inventions that we made in order to help our Filipino farmers is the Pilmec Impeller rice mill. Please note that the Philippines is heavily dependent on imported rice mill machines from Japan and to some extent Korea, Taiwan, and China. Unfortunately, the design of these rice mill machines are highly favorable for use by grain businessmen and not highly conducive for use by the farmers in the countryside. For example, all of these imported milling machines require three-phase electrical line, and this type of electrical line is not commonly available in the countryside, especially in the remote areas. If you will notice, most of the rice milling machines are at the hands of private traders, And these are mostly situated along the national highway where three-phase electrical line is available. The Pilmec Impeller rice mill features a new type of huller, an impeller not rubber roll, to efficiently separate the rice hull from the brown rice. This rice mill is compact yet powerful with milling capacity of 300 kg per hour. The design successfully reduces 60% of the space requirement of traditional rice mill. Most importantly, it is capable of producing brown rice even if the palay has moisture content of 10 to 16%, a distinct features not available to traditional rice mill design. Our cooperators in Nueva Ecija, Negros Occidental, Dipolog City are now buying palay from their members and non-member farmers at higher price than the prevailing market price, mill their own produce, and sell brown rice at 60 pesos per kilogram, doubling or tripling their income in rice farming. These farmers' cooperatives are now operating their own brown rice processing enterprise using the Pilmec developed Impeller rice mill. In addition to this, during the lockdown period, and given the strict community quarantine restrictions that we observed, we assisted them in putting up their online marketing such as in Shopee and other available e-market platform in their locality to continue their business operations. With this, they can easily sell brown rice product and realize earnings of about 9,000 pesos per 10 bags of palay transaction. This proves that with the proper technology and the provision of appropriate technical and marketing assistance, our marginalized farmers or farmers group are capable of operating and managing a rice processing enterprise even in time of adversities like the strict community quarantine restrictions that are being observed in our country. The second type of milling machine that we developed in order to help our corn farmers this time is the Pilmec compact corn mill. Perhaps you may ask, why do we need to develop corn mill machine? It is sad to know that almost all of corn mill machines currently operating in our country are already more than 50 years in service, lumang-luma na, and still uses a 1950s kiskisan technology that features emery stone o yung bato. Modern rice mills were already introduced in our country, but the corn mill machines being used have not evolved or improved yet. Please note that the corn mill is so important in our country because 15 million Filipinos are eating corn grits as their staple food, most of which are our kababayans in Visayas and Mindanao. Kung walang corn mill machine sa kanilang baryo, kailangan pang ibiyahe ng malayo ng ating mga magsasaka ang kanilang mais na mayroong corn mill sa ibang lugar para lamang ipagiling ang kanilang produkto. Dahil kakaunti ang corn mills na nag-ooperate sa Pilipinas at luma ang disenyo kaya mababa ang efficiency, ang milling fee na sinisingil sa mga farmers ay sobrang mahal. Umaabot ito ng 3.10 to 4.75 pesos per kilogram kumpara sa 1.75 to 2.50 pesos per kilogram na sinisingil ng mga rice millers. Our corn mill design features a hexagonal screen huller for the degerminator mechanism instead of using emery stone to improve the quality of corn grits product. We introduced a T-type rotating blades for its grinding mechanism to improve corn grits product recovery. Likewise, we totally innovate the grading mechanism by introducing 3 rotating cylinders instead of adopting the oscillating type siever to reduce the power requirement of the machine. Since its commercialization in 2014, there are now more than 300 units of corn mill sold all over the country through our partner in the private sector, with total value of 105 million pesos. The third type of milling machine that we developed that is geared towards helping our Filipino farmers is the micro mill for brown rice. May I emphasize that the first two machines were designed for group of farmers, while this time this is intended for individual farmers with area of only 1 hectare. This brown rice micro mill with capacity of 1 bag per hour is smaller than the size of a tire of SUV. It can be moved from one place to another at pwedeng isaksak sa kuryente sa bahay kagaya ng electric fan na appliances natin. This machine has great potential for commercialization because of its superior performance. Even it is small, it is capable of producing brown rice with a head rice recovery of more than 80%. The milling recovery is high at 77%, which significantly higher than the average milling recovery of commercial mills for polished rice at 64%. Simultaneous pilot testing of this rice mill will be undertaken next year in 10 farmers project operators in Ifugao, Nueva Vizcaya, Aurora, Kalinga, and Nueva Ecija to improve its technical performance and socio-economic acceptability, particularly on the ease of operating and conducting repairs and maintenance. Likewise, during this stage, we want to develop a business model where an individual farmer can viably operate a brown rice processing enterprise using the micro mill that we developed. Since one of the major problems of the farmers is marketing, we intend to link these farmers to online marketing given the emerging popularity and acceptability of this marketing platform like Shopee, even in the remote areas in the countryside. It is our prayer that this technology will be commercially available in 2022 at a cost of 35,000 pesos. The unit price is almost 80% cheaper than the hand tractor, the most common machine owned by our farmers that costs 150,000 pesos. To protect our technologies, we initiated the drafting of patent claims and ensure that the intellectual property right be filed at the Philippine Intellectual Property Office. Note that in the IPR, the owner of our technologies is Pilmec, representing the general public. In other words, these technologies is ours, not us, because we are just the inventors of this technology. As a strategy, we promote and commercialize these technologies through licensing agreement with local manufacturers for the right to fabricate, distribute, and sell our developed technologies. It is important to note that the introduction of modern agricultural machineries from other countries have badly hit our local manufacturing sector that displays some of our inefficient local machineries in the field. The timely grant of license to ACT machineries, for example, has enabled them to survive and was able to sell more than 200 units of corn meal with total value of 80 million pesos. The introduction of corn meal in their product line has inspired them to diversify to other agricultural products that lead them to business expansion instead of contraction. Through our partner local manufacturers, our technologies have provided additional jobs in the countryside. In conclusion, our farmers need our assistance through science and technology to enable them to engage in value-adding activities, thereby increasing their income. The development and commercialization of appropriate milling machines for our farmers is very important for the sustainable development of the country's agriculture. the engineering innovations that we have undertaken are very timely in sustaining food availability and source of additional livelihood to our farmers and stakeholders. Thank you very much. Together, we heal as one.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gragasin, for your very inspiring presentation. Indeed, we truly have to support our backliners or our farmers through e-commerce and marketing support because they really need this. And also, thank you so much, Dr. Gragasin, for developing efficient and affordable rice and corn mills for them to be able to produce products that they can earn more income from. All right, so at this point, we will now go to our question and answer portion. So we will now bring back in our two speakers to entertain questions from our attendees. We will be joined by PTT President, Engineer Fred Montada as well, and our MWF Executive Director, Mr. Reginald Andal. So hello once again, Dr. Gragasin, Dr. Orge, Engineer
Hi.
Montada, and Sir Reg.
Hello
Ayan,
po.
so hello
Good
po.
morning,
So
everyone.
good
Hello
morning. So
po.
thank you so much for joining us this morning. So we will now take in questions from our audiences. So we have been asking them or encouraging them to post their comments or questions on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, as well as the Facebook group of Engineering Excellence. All right. So as we wait for comments, I'd like to ask you, this is a question from our Manila Water family. So, as a Filipino engineer, why is it important to develop new technologies for our farmers? So, maybe Dr. Orge, you can start.
Yeah. I will answer that within the context of rice farming. You see, there are great challenges the farming industry is facing now. One is the coming in of imported rice, which are much cheaper than the locally produced rice. Another one is climate change. So technologies really played important role in combating these problems. For example, for the coming of the imported rice that are cheap, these were produced by farmers from neighboring countries, which are fully equipped with new technologies, and our local farmers have to be also be competitive, and they need also to be equipped with the technologies, and most of this can be done by engineers. So as we have seen from the presentations of Mike, these are the technologies that can help farmers improve or add value to their produce. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Orge. No? So that's important, adding value to their produce because this will surely increase their incomes, which really our farmers need, especially during this time of the pandemic. So, Dr. Gragasin, you can answer that question. Same question.
Yeah, I am a son of a part-time farmer in Isabela, and I personally witnessed how small the income derived in rice farming, especially that a rice field is highly dependent on rainfall during that time. I do believe that developing appropriate technologies, affordable milling technologies will make the difference in giving our farmers hope and the opportunity to process their own produce and negotiate for a higher price for their farm output. And I think this will help them increase their income.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gragasin. Do you have anything else to say po?
Yun lang.
Alright, okay. So nakakatuwa po talaga, Dr. Gagasin, kasi nagkaroon talaga ng oportunidad yung mga farmers natin na magkaroon ng mas malaking kita dahil sa mas affordable na po yung milling machines natin na sinabi niyo nga na dati-rate yung mga big milling companies lang ang kayang mag-process no nung kanilang mga bigas. So nagkakaroon tuloy ng mas malaking value yung mga produce nila, and thereby giving them more income to feed their families and to support their children's education and other needs that they may have. Ayan. So thank you so much. Kayo po ay tunay na mga bayani. Ayan. So
Salamat.
thank you po. So again, we are entertaining questions from our audiences from Facebook and from YouTube, and some comments. So here's one from Mr. Ali Molina from our YouTube channel. Sirs, are carbonizer and rice mill machines available in the market? And are they affordable for farmers? So unahin ko lang po si Dr. Orge since
Okay.
the carbonizer was mentioned first.
The new model, the COVID carbonizer for biomass discards, we plan to make it open source. I'll just get an official approval from the management, but I already have initial feedback from them. So the plan is we will prepare the guide in constructing this the carbonizer, and so, as of now, of course, there are no available units you can get in the market. Pero ang idea dito, lahat ay kung sino yung gusto, gumawa na lang kayo for your use, for your backyard to manage your waste.
All right. So, abangan po natin yan, no? So, sabi po ni Dr. Orge, they're still in the process of making this an open source, yung ating COVID carbonizer. Very witty name po, Dr. Orge. So, kay Dr. Gagasin po, same question?
Yes, actually, ang Pilmec o kami, hindi kami ang nagbebenta ng mga milling machines. We always grant license or partner this with our local manufacturers. At yung corn mill machine ngayon at yung impeller rice mill available na sa market. They are now supplying these machines at you can contact them at sila ang magbebenta sa inyo. Our local manufacturers were given the right to fabricate, distribute, and sell this technology. At we always in contact with them to ensure that yung performance na dinesign namin ay nakakamtan. At the same time, we always monitor them para ma-ensure yung quality and the provision of after-sales service kapag naibenta na nila ito sa mga farmers.
Ayan. So, thank you so much, Dr. Gagasi. No? So, as he said, these machines are available at the market. You can actually directly go to the local manufacturers, which they have granted licenses to, so that they can manufacture, fabricate, and sell these machines. So, kay Engineer Monsada po tayo. Ayan. So, as part and head of PTC, what do you wish to see in our future engineers? Ayan. Engineer Monsada, your mic is on mute po. Ayan.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there are many things that I would like to see in our future engineers. And of course, I just would like to relate this immediately to the two awardees, to Dr. Orge and to Dr. Gragasin. No? I myself, my family has always been a farmer family. And up to the time that I was in college, even today, I still go to the farm. And I think our land area is less than one hectare. so we my father is a tenant, and I think one of the things that I would like to see in our engineers is really focusing. Well, they should have that global perspective, but focusing on the local needs, especially because we should understand that there's a big proportion of our population who are, at that tawag nila, laylayan ng ating sosyedad, di ba? Andyan. And I think most of them are in the farming sector. Karamihan dyan. Like for me, when I was in college or even in high school and elementary, if we don't properly treat our produce, like kamatis, tomato, pag nasira yon, pag time na mura yung tomato, and minsan mali ang farmer dahil nagtatanim yan, sabay-sabay sila, no? So by the time the plant fruits, wala, mura-mura yung tomato, no? And I think these ideas that our excellence awardees are, pushing, they're creating, they're making it happen. This is very, very important for all of us. Before the pandemic, or probably I think it was March, there were a big, amount of tomato that were dumped, somewhere in the north. Tomato and onions. So if I will look at future engineers, I would like to see engineers like those, taking care of these things. Sabihin mo sa akin, these are seasonal, but pinaghirapan ng mga farmers ito. So maybe we should take care of those. And I'm very happy Dr. Orges talked about that hermetic thing about making sure that the rice, the seeds are there, protected. I'm also very happy that Dr. Gargasin was talking about this milling, Kasi talagang na-experience ko yan. Na-experience ko yan. Pag bumaha bigla sa Pangasinan, I'm from Pangasinan. Pag bumaha yan, lahat ng aming palay, dapa. Pag dumapa yon, mahilig pa kami noon ng, pangalan ng palay na mabango? Milagrosa. Diba mataas yun? Tapos maganda yung mabango yung kanyang seeds. Pero pag bumaha yan, tumba. Tumba, nakababad yan sa tubig. Unless we get it, dry it, and make sure that it is safe, wala kaming pagkain for the rest of the year. Pag inabutan kami ng ganon. Mais, lalo na. Pag mais yan, pag tumama yan sa amin, yung baha, ang baha is hanggang dito sa mata ko nung maliit ako, hanggang dito. Pag tumama yon, wala kaming kakainin. So, all of these things, ulitin ko, I'm very happy that there are engineers of the kind of Dr. Orge and Dr. Gargasin. Sana maibaba yan. Talagang maibaba sa mga tao. Maibaba. I'm very happy, yan, nasabi ni Dr. Orge that that they will make the technology open source. Very good. Very good. Actually, I nasa aking ulo na yon because we have a small farm. My nephew is working on it, and I think one of the is a demonstration of all these technologies. Gusto ko yung bago mong Doc Dong, yung carbonizer mo na cube. Gusto ko yun. Yung cube na bago. Yung bago mong ginawa. Maganda.
Dakwemo.
So, yun ang gusto ko makita sa mga engineers. Internationally, marami kaming pinag-usapan in the last 6 months. It is ongoing. In fact, I'm supposed to submit December 5, our last comment, PTC's comment on the proposed changes in the expected graduate attributes of engineers. And during my opening remarks, I said, number one, the engineers must have a orientation of inclusiveness. And number two, he must have a very good understanding of diversity, that we all exist in a very diverse environment. No? Sometimes very small groups have interest, they have this, no, they have that. And we should, as engineers, must consider this in our works, in designing products, in designing processes, in designing systems, in designing, equipment and machineries. So that's my my long answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Monsada. No? So truly, we need to raise more young engineers to be like Dr. Orge and Dr. Gagasin, who can really support our farmers who belong to the vulnerable sector of society. So thank you so much for that, Engineer Monsada. So for Mr. Andal of MWF, why is it important to support engineers like Dr. Orge and Dr. Gagasin?
Thank you, Jill, for that question. Manila Water Foundation core advocacy and vision mission is to enable change through sustainable interventions for the marginalized communities in the Philippines. And we are very fortunate to find Dr. Orge, Dr. Gergasin, engineers who have been supporting the marginalized communities. This is really a demonstration of excellent engineering for social good, especially now that we're talking about the agricultural sector, our farmers, which can be considered as one of the vulnerable sectors during this pandemic. Our farmers experience a high degree of socioeconomic marginalization and are at already disproportionate risks in this public health emergency, becoming even more vulnerable during this global pandemic. So we owe it to our farmers to provide the access to these innovative projects. This is why Manila Water Foundation will support our engineers such as Dr. Orge and Dr. Gregasin, because after all of these innovative projects, this would really benefit the marginalized communities in the Philippines. So maraming salamat sa iyo, Dr. Orge, Dr. Gregasin. Sa mga panahong ito, pinaka-importante talaga ang masuportahan ang mga kababayan natin, lalo tigit ang mga magsasaka natin na nagbibigay pa rin ng mga pagkain sa bawat lamesa ng mga Pilipino. Maraming pong salamat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you din po.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andal. So that was talagang thank you so much for we honor you, Dr. Orge and Dr. Gagasin, for all the wonderful works that you've done. We know that maraming challenges along the way. Syempre, nakikita na lang natin yung finished products, no? Pero alam natin na mahaba talaga yung linakbay ninyo para makarating dito at magkaroon ng mga technologies katulad ng pinakita nyo sa amin kanina. So, from a Facebook user, there is a question: what rice technologies are we behind with other countries? And also, when other countries come to IRRI or IRI in Los Baños to train on rice farming? Ayan, so again, ano yung mga rice technologies na behind tayo compared to other countries, and what trainings, I guess, from other countries do they go for in IRI in Los Baños? Sige po, Dr. Orge, you can start.
Yeah, I think that sa tingin ko, we are at par with other countries in terms of technologies. Ang problema lang, medyo mahina yung deployment ng technologies papunta sa baba. So the extension system is quite needs to be improved. But for the technologies, I think we have, and even our other colleagues have partnerships with scientists from other countries. So we are updated with what are going on in other countries in terms of technology development. Yung mga nag-train sa IRI ay Uh, I am not so familiar. Hindi ko masyadong masagot siguro.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Orge. Kayo po, Dr. Gagasit?
Yeah, I agree with the opinion of Dr. Orge. Sa tingin ko, parehas lang in terms of technology. Ang problema talaga is the system. Sistema, how we will extend or the farmers will easily adopt these technologies. For example, in terms of cost of production, rice farming, 12 pesos tayo sa Pilipinas. Thailand, 8 pesos ang cost of production per kilogram. Vietnam, around 6 pesos. So, mas mababa talaga sa kanila kasi they are blessed with the Mekong River plus the system na ginagamit nila. We are using the same technologies but the system na ginagamit nila ay medyo iba, pamamaraan. And bakit tayo, siguro magandang sagutin na rin, bakit tayo nag-i-import? Sa kanila, marami yung kanilang lupa na tinatamnan for palay. So, konti ang kanilang populasyon. Tayo, maliit yung ating land area, marami ang Pilipino, 105 million na tayo. That's the reason why we import. And kaya doon sa rice tarification law, the government intend to reduce the production costs by introducing appropriate technologies na pwedeng magamit ng mga farmers natin at mapababa yung cost of production. At the same time, yung right machines and right seeds and right training for our farmers. And we hope ay makakahabol tayo in terms of cost production. Medyo napag-iwanan na kasi tayo in terms of yung productivity na pinag-uusapan natin. And this really the big challenge on the part of the government and the engineers na kagaya namin. Thank you.
Thank you po, Dr. Gagasi. No? So, as they mentioned, we have to strengthen the backbone of dapat end-to-end. Meron tayong solusyon or makakontribute tayo ng solusyon para yung ating mga technologies na nandyan naman ay talagang mabilis na makababa sa ating mga farmers. So, I'm sure marami pong engineers na nakikinig ngayon. So, please find ways to also help our system be more to be strengthened, no? So that we can bring the solutions kasi nandyan naman to our farmers in the countryside. Ayan, so another question from Twite19 from Facebook to Sir Fred. Does competition among ASEAN countries, specifically in their profession, exists or on framework of uplifting standard level of competency? Any update from PTC regarding ASEAN engineers or ACPE engineers? Ayan, so Dr. Mansada, Engineer Mansada, you can answer.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. But before I answer that question, I would like to comment on the previous question. No? Kasi I'm really very, very interested, having been, having worked, having been born in Pangasinan, get married to a Visayan, and work in Mindanao. No? And my work in Mindanao especially, I was an assistant district governor of Rotary, and I have seen how farmers work, how they use technologies. I think Dr. Orge is very, very pointedly said about deployment issue. No? Sabi ko nga one time I was at UP, I was telling them, somebody was saying, we published this in the international magazine. But I told them, I have a very simple thing that I would like to say. In Pangasinan, we raise talong. We grow talong like this. In Mindanao, in Visayas, we grow talong as small as that, as well as in Mindanao. So sabi ko, bakit? I was in Turkey, they were growing big talong, big eggplants. Malalaking eggplants, different kind of eggplants they have, So something is wrong somewhere. And I saw that, I heard that from Dr. Orge about deploying technologies. Farmers don't see it from the screen, don't see it, in a website. About 2 weeks ago, I was told, Sir Fred, there are technologies in our website. I told her, farmers will not look at your website because they don't have internet, they don't have computers, they don't even have a cell phone. So maybe the best is go to the mountains where the mountains are. No? Don't wait for them to access your website.
Yes.
Go there, immerse yourself, teach them, because you put standard numbers so and so, nobody cares. But go there, teach them like what Dr. Orge was doing and Dr. Gregasin are doing. So, yun ang comment ko doon. No? Kulang ang deployment. In Thailand, the first technology that they got from IRI, what did they do? The king set up a facility for it to be tested and implemented up to the level. And the king support that very well. The king himself supported. So I had that opportunity at one time being the chair of the Asian Federation of Engineering Organization to visit all of those. And of course, Mrs. Monsada visited it also. So, isang example yon na kulang yung deployment. Okay, pagdating sa Asian Engineer, I see we encourage more, not competition, but cooperation among Asian engineers. In fact, last week, the annual meeting of the Asian Federation of Engineering Organization, we are developing a system of cooperation among the Asian engineers and brand the Asian engineers for international opportunities. Brand it. Because I told the body that, Filipinos are all over. If I remember my number, there are 159 countries where you can find Filipino engineers. 159 countries. So, sabi ko sa kanila, let's not, compete with each other. Let's cooperate and create a brand name called Asian Engineers or Asian Technician or Asian Technologists. And this is what we are doing. Okay. Of course, we don't just say Asian engineer. We want to see Asian engineers being led by Filipinos. Asian engineers all over. You look at the Middle East. Okay. At one time, we had this grouping in the Middle East. What we did was to invite all the ambassadors from the ASEAN to attend that event, if only to make sure that we are together as ASEAN, we can work together and make things happen for the ASEAN, of course. And we have had experience already in the Philippines. Somebody, a Malaysian investor, set up a palm oil processing plant in Sultan Kudarat. And the first thing that he did was to call me, ask for Filipino engineers who can work on designing and setting up, constructing the plant. Now, 2 of them are operating the plant as the plant managers. So, di ba? So, yung nagtanong na yon, PTC is trying to promote not only Filipinos but also the ASEAN group. So, hopefully, yung cooperation na yan will really improve the lot, not only of the Filipinos but the whole ASEAN. So, medyo ng konti, no? But going back to what Dr. Orge and Dr. Gregasin were pointing out, I really hope that may nakikinig na, well, taga-gobyerno rin sila pala, nakikinig sa government to improve on the deployment of best practices, na hindi mo ibigay lang doon sa farmer on their own initiative. Okay lang yung own initiative kung wala siya, kung meron siyang, sobrang oras. Pero yung mga farmers, my friends, ano yun, umaga, alas 5, nakahanda na yan pupunta sa field. Before 6 o'clock ng hapon, kailangan niyang kunin yung kalabaw doon sa kung saan kumakain yung kalabaw, nakatali kumakain. Kunin niya yun, 6 o'clock. So, all that within that whole day, busy yung mama na yun. The only way that we can help them is really go to them. Of course, with all intent of really helping. Kasi, kaya ko nasabi yun because somebody set up a cooperative. When they got the money, they were gone. So, do it properly. I hope the government will listen, look at it, deploy. From my experience ko po yun, no? Experience ng mga nanay ko at tatay ko. So, at ako din, no? Up to the time that I was, as I've said, I was a student at UP. Nakita ko yung mga yun. In fact, the reason why I was accepted in a group at UP was I was the only one who knows how to plant palay at doon sa pagitan ng dalawang building sa UP because somebody was farming at that area before. And then one of the officers of the group asked me, what one thing that you can do that we cannot do? I told him, I know how to plant. Alam ko yun. Sabi ko, gusto mo, punta tayo doon sa putik na yun. Tanim tayo. So, again, sana magandang deployment. Maganda yung mga trabaho po nyo, Dr. Orge, Dr. Gugasin. Thank you very much.
Salamat.
Para sa mga farmers.
Salamat po, Engineer Monsada. So we know that there are still many concerns or problems that we need to overcome, and solutions don't come easy. But I think because of this discussion, we can start a conversation going, no? Let's call on our more volunteers to go to our farmers. The technologies are available, the innovations are there. We really just need to find the appropriate channels to be able to bring these technologies to our farmers, no? So kung pwede ako po mag-volunteer, mag-usap po tayo. Dr. Orge, Dr. Gagasin, gusto ko yan, no? Because I'm also from the field of communication. I think not just engineers, not just farmers, lahat ng professions, I think, have a stake in this concern. Lalo na kami from the field of communication, we can also bring something to the table and be able to find the proper communication tools. Kasi sabi nga ni Engineer Monsada, no, hindi naman sila pupunta sa website kasi wala naman silang devices to go to these websites. And importante talaga na dadali natin sa kanila yung mga kaalaman na yan na kailangan nila. Ayan. So, meron na po kayong isang volunteer. At magtatawag pa tayong mas marami pang volunteers. Ayan po. So, from Ms. Chelly Masao Hernandez. So, from Facebook, for our panelists, how can individuals help the agricultural sector? Is there a platform for people to volunteer and share their skills to our farmers? Ayan. So, medyo same line of thinking na tayo, no, with Ms. Chelly. What are your thoughts on engaging the private sector in these types of activities? So, Mr. Andal, maybe you can start this time.
Well, for Manila Water Foundation, it's really just providing the platform on how we could expand the reach to all sectors. There are a lot of private companies now and even non-profit organizations who have a lot of programs that can support our engineers, that can support our farmers. It's really a matter, again, of providing those opportunities for partnership and collaboration. And Dr. Orge and Dr. Gregasin can always be assured of our support so that we can even engage more partners, more collaborators in communicating what our engineers can do and can provide in terms of any intervention to this marginalized
Thank
community.
you, Mr. Andal. So, Dr. Orge and Dr. Gagasin. Dr. Orge po muna.
Volunteers. Parang ang hirap. Sa social media, may mga chat groups. For example, kapapasok ko lang yung usapang hybrid. May mga tanong doon ang mga farmers about problems na sinasagot din naman ng iba na may alam. So something like that. Siguro isa yon sa mga examples. Ang nakita ko talagang kailangan ng volunteers, yung nasa ground na mahirap kami napakaliit lang ng grupo ng PhilRice, and our primary function is research, although secondary may mga extension related activities na to supplement pa rin noong research na ginagawa namin. Private, we really welcome the participation of private companies. Maikwento ko lang, yung sa Pag-ahon project, actually, PhilRice did that in partnership with a private company, the East West Seed Corporation. Sila yung nag-provide ng seeds. And the local government unit of Lupao. Kasi ang instruction from the DA ay mag-adapt kami ng LGU at napili yung Lupao. And then we choose a vegetable farmers association, rice farmers association na siyang naging beneficiary nung project na yon. And that kind of project really created an impact. Mga ganon na tipong project ang magandang gawin, lalo na kung may mga mag-volunteers. Of course, Jill, yung communication part ay malaking bagay din yun. Thank you.
Thank you po, Dr. Orge. Ayan, so talagang tama po kayo, very important yung communication. Meron po akong kaibigan na agriculture graduate, at ang ginagawa niya talaga, pumupunta talaga siya sa mga farms, no? Tapos nag-explain talaga siya ng technology doon sa mga farmers. So yun talaga ang kailangan nating mga farmers. And kung di nyo po natatanong, ako po ay apo ng isang farmer din po. Meron ako, si Lolo Pepe, yung aking grandfather used to be a rice farmer nung nabubuhay pa siya. Kaya close to my heart po ang farming also, and as well as engineering, kasi ang father ko naman ay engineer. Ayan. Nagkwento na ng talambuhay. Ayan po. So si Dr. Gagasin po, meron po ba kayong insights on how the private sector can volunteer or can help in this concern?
First of all, siguro, we need to patronize our own product, particularly the Filipino product. Ang sabi nga ng isang secretary noon ng agriculture, kapag nananalangin tayo, wag namang English kasi baka yung biyaya ibigay ng Panginoon doon sa ibang bansa instead na sa Pilipinas. Ang ibig lang sabihin nito, instead na kumain tayo ng apple o orange o mikan, kumain na lang tayo ng dayap o yung calamansi o ano pa man. That will help a lot kasi could you imagine yung surplus nila sa ibang bansa dito dinadala. And yet, we don't patronize our own. We need numbers kasi dito para maging competitive yung ating agriculture sector. Brown rice, for example, ang laki ng epekto niyan Young people, ngayon, nag-start ng kumain ng brown rice. Alam niyo, kapag na-convert natin yung brown rice, na-convert natin yung ating rice production, mas inilang natin yung 25% ng ating rice production into brown rice, ang laki ng ibabawas sa rice importation natin mga 800,000 metric tons. Ano ibig sabihin nito? We really need to patronize our own. Kasi once na binibili natin yung produkto ng ating mga Pilipinong magsasaka, mas lalo natin silang pinapayaman. Hindi ang pinapayaman natin yung mga magsasaka sa Vietnam o sa Thailand. Kasi masasarap naman talaga yung prutas nila doon. Marami naman tayo dito. So we need numbers. We need to promote our own product and we need to patronize it. Yun lang, malaking bagay na yun.
Ayan. So, thank you so much, Dr. Gagasin. Tunay na tunay po yan. Talagang kailangan, lalo na at this time of the pandemic, talagang dapat unahin natin ang mga produkto ng kapwa nating Pilipino. Lalo na yan. At Dr. Gagasin, ang alam ko po, mas healthy po ang brown rice. Tama po ba?
Yes. Ang maganda kasi sa brown rice, maski kaunti yung kakainin mo, madali kang mabusog. Oo. At nutritious kasi ang brown rice. At ang maganda sa brown rice, mataas ang milling recovery kaysa sa milled rice. So, mas mataas ng 10%. So, the more na pinapatronize natin yung brown rice, nababawasan yung supply requirement natin. O yung demand volume natin.
Ayan, so nakakatulong sa ating kalusugan, tapos nakakatulong pa tayo sa ating mga farmers kasi mas mataas ang milling recovery nila kapag brown rice. At alam ko po, Dr. Gagasin, na available na po itong mga bigas na to sa Shopee, no? So, nakakatuwa na pwede na tayong bumili at sumuporta na local products doon. Ano po ba yung mga brands? Baka gusto nyo pong i-promote?
Yeah, yung brand name natin ay yung Agham Rice. Okay.
Agham Rice.
Yung isang cooperator natin dito sa Nueva Ecija, they are producing Agham Rice. And it's now available sa Shopee. So ito yung gusto nating platform na yung tutulungan natin later on ng mga individual farmers, i-link din natin dito sa Shopee kasi alam niyo yung mga young people ngayon, they are now eating brown rice. Akala ko noon mga matatanda lang ang may sakit ang kumakain ng brown rice. But this time, yung mga young people natin, nakakatuwa. They are now eating brown rice. They start to eat brown rice. So, ang laking tulong ito. These are all opportunities para sa ating mga magsasaka.
Ayan. So, thank you, Dr. Gagasin. Totoo po yan. Nagiging trend na ngayon ang brown rice. Yon. So, magandang paraan para makatulong din sa ating mga farmers. So, Engineer Monsada, any last thoughts po on the question?
Salamat sa dalawang excellence awardees natin, si Dr. Orge at saka si Dr. Gagasin. In behalf of, ganun pa rin yung feeling ko, no? In behalf of the farmers, thank you very much. And I asked all the sectors which the PTC represents for you to follow MWF Engineering Excellence, no prize for Engineering Excellence, and bring out more Dr. Orge, more Dr. Gagasin, bring them out into the open, and let's all help in making sure that we will have a sustainable, developing Philippines, no? Not only your communities, but the Philippines. So, sundan nyo ang MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence para next year, early next year, you will have ready somebody or many bodies, if you may, that you would like to nominate for this Prize for Engineering Excellence Award. Eventually, who will become volunteers na hinihingi ng ating grupo, no, to volunteer to work with the communities at the laylayan ng ating sosyedad. So, yun po. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Monsada. So at this point, we are still entertaining questions. So from Von Eliel Camaso from Facebook, for both our speakers, are these technologies considered food safety and gender sensitivity? Dr. Orge, you can start po.
Yes. At PhilRice, we have that IMS, International Management System, wherein we integrate issues on food safety, gender or gender and development issues. So even in developing machines, kasama yan sa mga ginagawa namin. In fact, kung makikita nyo, yung mga report sa aking presentations, these are livelihood opportunities that favors both success. Mga kababaihan, mga nanay, mga kahit mga kalalakihan. So, kasama po yun. We have our Rice Chemistry and Food Science division that looks into the food safety kasi nagde-develop din kami ng mga food products. In fact, nabanggit kasi ni Sir Fred yung mga kamatis na nabubulok that was reported during the pandemic. Actually, may na-develop na yung kasamahan namin sa tomato candy at may report ko lang. This will be reported in our research highlights. Tomato leather yata. Processed tomato. At nabigyan ako ng idea doon sa kay Mike. Baka makikita nyo na rin ito sa Shopee later on once we can connect with cooperative who can make use of these technologies.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Orge. Dr. Dragasin?
Yes. In the design and development of the milling machines that I mentioned a while ago, we always consider the Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standard. Dapat pumasa ito. So, dapat food safe siya at safe din yung operator nito. Particularly yung mga babae. So, we always consider that. And I hope Jill will volunteer later on to operate the machine as a good model. Magandang pang-attract na a beautiful lady can operate this machine na ginagawa ko.
Sige, Dr. Dragasin, I will volunteer for that. Ako ang magiging model. Alright. So, na-inspire po natin si Dr. Orge na mag-e-commerce na rin po sila. So, tama po yan. Usong-uso ngayon yan. So, we can sell our local produce in the online market today. So, for Dr. Orge and Dr. Dragasin, aside from upgrading technologies and infra in farms, how can our farmers adjust to the adversities caused by climate change and fluctuating economy? So, I know that this is the last question. So, kay Dr. Dragasin po muna tayo.
Given na yan eh. We are blessed na every year, more than 18 typhoons ang dumadaan sa Pilipinas. At yung climate change, andyan na yan. That's the reason why we develop appropriate machineries, post-harvest machines like dryer. For example, para madaling mapatuyo kaagad yung ani ng mga magsasaka natin. Right now, we are introducing rice combine kasi halimbawa dumaan yung ulan o bagyo, tapos natumba yung palay. Dati, hindi na yan naani kasi nakadapa na yung palay eh. So, ayaw na ng mga maggagapas na anihin yan. But, with the introduction of mechanical yung rice combine natin, sandali lang yan. Maaani ka agad. So, nababawasan yung post-harvest losses natin. These are all technologies na available natin na sinisikap ng ating government na ibigay sa ating mga magsasaka. For each year, more than 5 billion ang worth of machineries ang binibigay ngayon ng government through the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund natin. And ito yung minamanage ng Pilmec, yung opisina namin. Hopefully, for the next 6 years, maraming mga farmers ang mabibigyan nito. And hopefully, these machineries will help them compete in the international market at the same time ma-overcome yung adversity ng climate change sa atin. Kasi given na yan.
Yan. Thank you po, Dr. Dragasin, for that answer. No? So we'll continue to look forward towards that rice competitiveness and enhancement fund that we will that you are rolling out. So Dr. Orge, kayo po?
Yeah. Siguro mindset na nabanggit ko yung new normal. New normal talaga siya na totoo. Because the strong typhoons will keep on coming. Strong hindi yung pangkaraniwang bagyo. Kasi yun ang predictions eh. So, we need to consider it seriously. Usually sa mga nagle-lecture ako sa kasama na yung topic na climate change sa mga lectures sa farmers. Ang sabi ko sa kanila, to mainstream yung climate change sa mga plano, whatever plans they have. Kung magtayo sila ng bahay, tingnan na baka yung lugar na yun ay bahain. Tingnan na kung yung lugar na yon ay exposed sa malalakas na hangin in times of typhoons. Mga ganong issues. If they construct kung meron silang equipment na mamahalin, tingnan na rin kung baka nasa room siya na ang katabi ay may malaking puno ng kahoy, mabagsak doon, sira yung mga mamahaling equipment, something like that. So, nasa mindset. At to cope up, we really need technology. So, hindi ko lang na-report sa iba kanina, but we keep on developing things na for the future. One example is the farm tractor. Yung mga hand tractors natin ngayon ay designed in the last, na-develop yan mga 1950s. So, we are now developing a mini tractor that considers climate change. Mga issues ng climate change is something na dapat makapag-travel sa mga farms na natakpan ng putik. After ng bagyo, maraming farm na ganon. Dapat during dry season, it can help in drilling shallow tube wells, through sa kanyang mga attachments lang. Dapat makapag-pump ng tubig o dapat madaling makagawa ng mga canals just to drain out excess water, mga something na gano'n. So technology. Thank you.
Yan.
Anticipation, yeah.
Salamat po, Dr. Orge. Napaka-importante talaga yan, no? Yung anticipation and accepting the fact that climate change is real. So, kailangan ini-incorporate na talaga po ng ating mga farmers yung mga ganyang pangitain sa future dahil para maprotektahan sila. Ayan, so at this point, I would like to say thank you to all our panelists for today. Thank you, Dr. Orge. Thank you, Dr. Gagasin, Sir Reg Andal, and Engineer Monsada. Maraming salamat po for joining this webinar series. We've truly learned a lot. And for all the other comments, thank you so much. And the questions, we will be answering them offline. Pasensya na po at that we were not able to answer them today. So before we end this session, I'd like to ask a final question to Mr. Orge and Mr. Gagasin. So I am curious po, how did winning the Manila Water Foundation Prize for Engineering Excellence impact your career as an engineer and innovator? So Dr. Orge, you can start.
Pang Miss Universe na tanong.
Yes, Mr. Universe.
Yeah, the award really was something great. And with that great award comes great responsibility. Parang movie ata yun. It put me in the limelight. Parang hindi ako makapaniwala na ma-recognize yung mga nagagawa ko. But I still believe that it was not an accident. It was a heaven-sent award that made me think na I have really to strive more. I have really to work because may mga responsibilities. I look at it na may mga responsibilities na kaakibat doon sa award na yun. That's why napansin nyo sa aking presentation, my focus now is more on the smallholder farmers kasi ito yung grupo talaga na nasa yung sinabi ni Sir Fred, nasa laylayan ng society, the base of the pyramid. Ito yung grupo na they could hardly respond in times of crisis because they have different limited resources to respond. Ito yung grupo na naiiwan, mahirap makipag-compete kasi they are not capable of competing. So thank you ulit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Orge. If you only know how much you've inspired us all through these years since we've known you and we've known your hard work in achieving sustainability po for our farmers and helping them talaga, talagang bayani po talaga kayo. So, Dr. Gagasin, same question po. How did the price impact your career as an engineer and innovator?
First of all, gusto kong ikwento yung nangyari. Nung tinawag yung pangalan ko, kasi ako yung huling tinawag that time, actually sobrang saya at nakita ko sobrang masaya ang family ko. Hindi lang sa cash incentive na 500,000 pesos at net ito, kaya sobrang napaka-generous talaga ng Manila Water Foundation. At sobrang laki yun, yung amount na yun para sa amin. But most importantly, doon sa prestige ng Engineering Excellence Award, wow talaga kasi especially this was awarded by the Manila Water Foundation of the Ayalas. Nakaka-overwhelm. Impact nito, para sa akin, it's very lasting. Palaging nasa isip ko, part na ako ng Prize for Engineering Excellence family or network. So I should always carry that character, that DNA, or that passion to contribute, to help, always work for excellence in finding solutions with high relevance in order to make our country's agriculture sustainable para ma-enjoy naman ito ng next generation in the future. Salamat, Kid.
Thank you po, Dr. Gargasin. Ako, nakakatuwa din po na naging part po kayo ng MWF Prize for Engineering Excellence family. At truly, we are always inspired by the good works that you do, that we know na you do it not for yourself, but for others, especially our farmers. So thank you so much po. So at this point, I would like to thank all of you for joining us this morning. And we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you so much. So again, unanswered questions from our viewers will be collated by the MWF team and will be shared to our speakers. And a summary of their answers will be then sent to the registered attendees. And to formally close not just this episode, but also our webinar series, let us all welcome the Executive Director of Manila Water Foundation, Mr. Reginald M. Andal.
Thank you, Jill. Good day, everyone. I would like to thank you all for joining us today for the third and last episode of the Engineers for Excellence webinar series. It's only been 10 months since we awarded the third batch of awardees of the Manila Water Foundation Prize for Engineering Excellence, or the prize. But we have gathered today and the previous webinars to continuously push forward our intention to foster the ingenuity of Filipino engineers. As many of you may know, we have given recognition to 10 Filipino engineers for the past 3 runs of the prize. But aside from the prizes and recognition that they highly deserve, we also want to extend our unceasing support by providing platforms where they can promote their projects and technologies. And now, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and it is our reality now. This is why we are glad that you have given us the opportunity to showcase the innovative and relevant projects of Dr. Ricardo Orge and Dr. Michael Gragasin. And we all agree that there has been much to be gained from today's learning session, which demonstrates the very essence of engineering excellence. Maximizing the use of science and technology for the good of others, our fellow Filipinos. The unprecedented public health crisis recognizes and reaffirms the urgent need for all of us to work together, especially for the marginalized sector like the agricultural, for our farmers. This also presents the opportunities for our engineers to build a resilient future and save and protect the lives of more Filipinos through the advancement and implementation of science and technology, and eventually the agenda for sustainable development. Let me conclude these remarks by acknowledging the support of our program partners, Manila Water Company, Department of Science and Technology, our Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, and the Philippine Technological Council, Engineer Fred Montada, and of course the great work of spearheading this initiative, my colleagues in the Manila Water Foundation, Shelly Masaho, Princess Bugay, Jill Ramos, Sandy Sandoval, Alexis Pingol, and JP Antonio. With that, I hope that all of us will take inspiration from our outstanding engineers. And for those of you who would want to join us and make a difference, please be part of our advocacy of bringing WASH for all communities. Tayo ay isang pamayanan. Makitungo, makisalamuha, makibahagi. Tayo ay magmalasakit para sa dignidad at pag-asa ng bawat Pilipino. Let us all stay safe and healthy, and thank you. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much, Sir Reg, for that wonderful message. And just like what Sir mentioned, we will continue to take inspiration from our excellent engineers. So before we end, we invite everyone to answer a very short evaluation form by scanning the QR code flashed on your screens. A link to the survey platform is also posted in the comment section. An electronic certificate will be issued as soon as you have accomplished the evaluation form. It's been an honor to be your host for today. On behalf of Manila Water Foundation and our partners DOST and PTC, we hope that you had a fun learning experience. Again, I am Jill, and see you on our next webinar series. Stay safe, everyone.